Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little bit smarter. And I'd like to welcome to the show our co-host today, Christy Pittick from Pack Your Pixie Dust. How are you doing today, Christy?
I'm well, but am I only the co-host today? Is my job up for grabs?
It is not up for grabs, but we had so much fun talking to Chris from Los Angeles over his cruise up to Alaska and also down to the D23 conference here just recently, a convention. And we thought it'd be fun to bring him on and help us out with our DCL 101 series and some of our other shows. So I'd like to welcome you to the show for the third time, Chris.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
And don't worry, Christy, I'm not trying to take your job.
Thank God. I mean, I'm all for, three co-hosts on occasion, but man, you said co-host today. That's the lawyer in me. I hear the little word.
Uh-oh.
I got to be a little bit more specific, don't I? Okay. Well, we are jumping into the 101 series again, and today's topic, we are going to talk all about staterooms and some of the different staterooms that are offered on the Disney Cruise Line. You know, Christy, you're a travel agent. Is this one of the first things that you talk about besides the cruise itself when your clients come and talk to you?
Well, it's got to be one of the first ones when they ask for a price. So usually we don't talk about the stateroom until we've picked out the cruise.
I guess I remember the first time, going, and I think you're right on there. The first time we went, our travel agent said, "Hey, where do you guys want to go?" We knew we wanted to go to Alaska. We looked at the dates as far as that went and some of the pricing, and then we started looking at where you're going to stay. And it can be pretty confusing as far as the different staterooms that are available. So I thought we'd kind of break it down a little bit, talk about each category or each one, and then kind of our thoughts overall as to why we like to book where we book.
Yeah, because it's especially confusing that everything is labeled like 5A, 7D, 6B. And so there's literally 20 or 30 categories. And if you're the first time ever on the website, you're like, I have no idea what this Morse code means.
I counted them while Steve was talking earlier. There are 28 on the Dream and Fantasy.
Oh my gosh.
28! And I still can't figure out what they are. The 7s and the 11A and the 4E, and I know a few of them, but I just have to look at my chart.
Because sometimes it's the exact same layout of room, but just one floor below or above.
Well, correct. And then where they're located. So we're giving away tips. So some of those letters mean, where is the room located? What floor is the cabin going to be on? What type of cabin is it?
And I think there are some people out there that have those memorized, especially, the travel agents, I'm sure do. But I know that people have...
Those people are crazy.
Right, who have cruised several times. They know exactly. And we're not going to get into all the minutiae of it, but there are certain staterooms that people love and covet, and they go after them as soon as they can when those cruises come out. But I thought we'd break it down just a little bit more general today. So if you're cruising for the first time with Disney or even the second time, don't get too wrapped up into the 2B or the 5A or whatever else. We're just going to break it down to kind of the simplistic view of what's available, and then we'll just kind of go from there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good idea. And really
Sounds
don't get
fun.
Worried about 2B because that doesn't exist.
Okay.
I just want to make sure people understand that.
You'll be looking for a long time.
Really long time.
Well, maybe it'll be on the Wish. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, all right. Well, let's just talk about them in general here then. So after you've booked your cruise, after you've picked your cruise, one of the first things that, as you go through the website or if you're working with your travel agent, they're going to ask you, what stateroom do you want? And then they're going to give you some different pricings. And the way Disney breaks it down is they say they have 4 main categories, which encompass 10 different room types in different deck locations. And so the 4 main categories that they have are, the basic one is the inside stateroom, which is not going to have any windows or a veranda. Then they have an ocean view stateroom, which is going to have either one big porthole or 2 portholes. And I'm not sure how you even tell that unless you happen to know the room itself. Do you know, Chrissy, whether it has 1 or 2?
The description of the room will tell you that.
Okay. Then there's the veranda, and there's 2 different types of verandas. Basically, there's the family veranda, the deluxe ocean view stateroom with veranda, which holds 4 people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. And then there's the deluxe family ocean view stateroom, which holds 5 people. I think I said that the right way. And then there's concierge. And concierge incorporates the big suites, but then they also incorporate a 2-bedroom and then the 1-bedroom suite with veranda. So you cannot get an ocean view or an inside stateroom with concierge. And we'll kind of break that down as we go. So why don't we start off with the inside staterooms? Have you guys, if either of you guys stayed in an inside stateroom?
In my life, I have. On Disney Cruise Line, I have not. Although we were in an inside stateroom on the Big Red Boat, so I guess technically kind of. But no, not on these trips.
Okay, how about you, Chris?
I have not on Disney or on another cruise line. That's partially, I know we're going to talk about this topic later, but partially because I've always been worried I can get a little seasick, and I've always been worried that I wouldn't have quick access to fresh air. But if it was the difference between access to fresh air or getting on the ship at all, I'd probably take an inside stateroom, especially because I know people with seasickness who have been fine in an inside stateroom.
And we have actually stayed in inside staterooms twice. We did it on our very first cruise up to Alaska. And then when my wife and I cruised, we booked an inside stateroom because we knew our family is the type that we're just out and about. We just wanted to get on a ship, and we wanted to pay the cheapest price we could. So these staterooms are generally always going to be, or I should say they probably always are going to be your cheapest price point getting on the ship. So they're kind of scattered all about. They have them, I'm just looking, and I'm going to use the Magic here because we can't really go through all the different ships. So for me talking about the inside staterooms, I'm just going to focus on the Magic, the smaller ships. They can be found on deck 2, 5 and 6, and 7. So they're kind of sprinkled all about. And on the bigger ships, they're the same way. That's your understanding as well, right, Christy?
Yes, but they are on more decks.
Yeah, because there's more decks on the ship itself. So I guess what I'm saying is it's not like they're all in one area of the ship. They're kind of sprinkled all around. And to be fair, what the cruise industry overall is seeing is these kind of staterooms are kind of going away, mainly because most people want to have some type of ocean view or veranda. So if you look at all the newer ships being built, they generally are encompassing many more veranda and ocean view staterooms. And also because it's a higher price point for the cruise lines to sell.
Correct.
Some general things about the inside staterooms. There are 2 different types. There's the standard inside stateroom, and then there's also the deluxe inside stateroom. And also, I guess we'll talk about this a little bit later, you can get handicap accessible staterooms as well in each one of the different categories. So looking at the 2 different inside staterooms for Disney, your standard inside stateroom is going to be your smallest. It's roughly about 184 square feet.
But that is only on the classic ships because it starts at 170 on the Dream and the Fantasy.
Okay, so a little bit smaller on the Dream and Fantasy, a little bit bigger on the Magic and the Wonder. So,
which is basically how it's going to be for every category of room.
Okay, perfect. Once again, just kind of the basics of it. Your standard inside stateroom is going to sleep 4 people. It's going to have a queen size bed. And it's also going to have a sleeper sofa that turns into 1 bed. And then there's an upper berth that your stateroom host can pull down for you. And they'll do that each day and night where they bring that out.
That is in many of the cabins, the upper berth, but not all. So not all inside cabins sleep 4. But you'll know when you're booking with 4 that you have a cabin that'll sleep 4.
That is a good point because when we were on the Wonder, the inside stateroom we booked was just for 3, so they don't have that upper berth that pulls down. I got you. You're right. So some of the other amenities that each one of them have, beds are going to be higher up, so you can put your bags and store stuff underneath the bed itself. Each of them will have a TV screen, about a 22-inch or so, flat screen TV. You're going to have a desk, a refrigerator, an in-room safe, a hairdryer, and you'll also have your bath products that are included. And the one question I have, Christy, is what about pack and plays? Do you know is that something you request, or how does that work?
Yes, if you have a 1-year-old or an infant, they're going to put the pack and play in there automatically. But otherwise, you can request it as well. You can also request on Disney Cruise Line a bottle warmer and a diaper genie. So if you are traveling with an infant or diaper child, they'll actually give you the garbage can to put the diapers in so it doesn't stink up the whole cabin.
If you book a deluxe inside stateroom, the difference between that and the standard inside stateroom is going to be the bathroom. And it's going to be a little bit bigger. So the deluxe inside stateroom is once again going to sleep 3 to 4, depending upon which one you book. But the difference is going to be that you're going to have that split bathroom. And Christy, you've got some thoughts as far as clients go with the split bathroom. Why don't you throw those out there?
I think that people with children especially appreciate the split bathroom, but that some people that are traveling without children actually find the walking in and out of different rooms to go to the bathroom versus taking a shower to be annoying.
So just to go back to it, what that means is with the standard inside stateroom, you're going to have just one room, one bathroom where you walk in. You'll have the toilet, the shower, and the sink. With the split bathroom, you're going to have two separate rooms. One is going to have the toilet and a sink in it, and the second one will have a sink and a shower. And Chris, when you guys have traveled, what are your thoughts on the split bathrooms?
Yeah, we've traveled in that sort of like we're just a couple without kids thing. And I do think when nature calls, it is nice to have that privacy. And then the other person could be showering, doing whatever else they want. The other thing is if you pack your day, especially if you go out and do excursions, a split bath is really nice to come home to because sometimes you only have like 10, 15 minutes to get ready for dinner or for, the show that night, and then you're out the door again. And so it's nice to be able to have a sink and a mirror in both where you can sort of both be getting ready at the same time. But, I'm 6'2", and I can say that it is probably one of the roughest parts of cruising because the first time I ever used a toilet on a Disney cruise, I was like, my knees touching the door, like I couldn't get comfortable. And that's just an experience of cruising that it is a bit smaller. When you get in the shower, your head is almost touching the ceiling, things like that. So you do have to get used to the fact that split bathroom or no, it's going to be small and cramped.
That is very true.
Cruising with the different cruise lines, and we don't have to get too deep into this, but how do you think the bathrooms compare on Disney compared to Norwegian or Christie's Celebrity?
Well, one thing I love about the other cruise lines is they have learned the magic of a glass shower door or acrylic shower door or something. And Disney still uses that sort of shower curtain situation.
It's pressed against your body when you're trying to shower. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And kind of mildewy. I mean, I'm not saying that they would be mildewy, but in my mind, I'm like, oh no, a wet curtain is touching my skin. I feel like this is dirty. Whereas when there's that glass door, I don't know, it feels easier to clean, easier to maintain. So I would say there is one perk of I do like just having a glass enclosed shower. I imagine the parents out there are probably like, yeah, but that makes it way harder to give a bath to our kids or do things like that. And I hear you, and it makes sense. But I do like the sort of sliding glass door situation that I've used on other cruise lines.
Yeah, and that's where Disney differentiates from other cruise lines is that in most of their cabins, they have bathtubs. And on other cruise lines, you only get bathtubs if you're in a suite. Now, not every cabin has a bathtub, so make sure that you talk to your travel agent to work out which ones have a bathtub and which don't.
Good call.
So then the only other difference between the deluxe inside stateroom and the standard inside stateroom are those, and I don't remember the name of it, but the virtual, that's what it's called, the virtual porthole. So you have what looks like a little porthole in your cabin, but it's really just a TV.
With Disney magic. Little characters pop up, little...
Oh, that magic. I thought you meant the ship, and I was like, wait, it's on the other ships.
Yeah, it's not even on the old ships. No, but on the new ships, do you remember when they first released that and people wanted to book inside cabins specifically because they wanted to see the magic portholes?
I do. They were sold out.
Yeah, because there weren't that many. Disney was like, everyone wants verandas. And then all of a sudden everyone was like, actually, we want to see the Finding Nemo character swim across the window.
I mean, it's pretty magical. It is pretty magical. And they surprise you. So you'll just be doing whatever. And then all of a sudden you'll hear water sounds and whatever swimming across your screen.
That's so cool. I've never seen it, actually. But Steve, you said one time you and your son went and snuck into a room to see it or something.
Yeah, we on our spring break cruise last year, the day we were leaving, as they were kind of cleaning the staterooms, we looked down the hallway and we saw the door was open. They were in there cleaning, and we saw one of them. So my youngest son and I went down there and took a look at it. It was pretty cool. So it's like you guys said, it's just a view of outside the ship, whether it's from the front or the back. I'm sure they can probably change it. And then, like you said, Chris, they with this different little magic things that popped up. We didn't see anything while we were there, but we just saw the outside view, I guess, of the ship. But it was kind of cool. I don't know if I would really want to book that or not, but I wouldn't not book it, I guess. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. The other general tip for somebody in an inside stateroom, if they want to see what's happening outside, because sometimes you want to know if it's raining or whatever, you can actually turn on your ship TV, and they have a camera pointed to the front of the ship, so you can see where we are. You can see if we're docked. You can see if it's daylight. You can see whatever's happening outside just by watching TV. You can make your own virtual porthole.
Your own virtual porthole with the TV. The one other thing that I've heard people talk about is they like the inside cabins because it's so dark and they sleep better. And
so dark.
It is totally dark. It's almost like you're not sure where you are when you wake up. But I'm not sure that it's not that I don't buy that. That's totally true. But with the curtains, don't think that it's not going to be dark with the ocean view and the verandas, because those curtains that they have on are really heavy and they do a really good job of keeping the light out. So I think we sleep really well. It doesn't really matter which one of the staterooms goes. So, well, anything else about the inside staterooms before we turn to the ocean view ones?
The only other thing we should state in general for all the staterooms, we've talked about the other things included like shampoo and conditioner and stuff like that, but they also have a big curtain in most of the cabins that divide. Handicap accessible cabins are the exclusion to this, that will divide the quote-unquote parents' bed from the living room / kids section. So you can separate the room, and that curtain is very big as well, so that the parents can watch or can have a light on so they can read in bed and then not disturb the children sleeping.
And excitingly, the TVs all pivot so that they can be put onto one side of the curtain or the other. And so you can still watch a movie while the kids are sleeping or something like that, because you can face the TV towards the parents' bed or the kids' bed without needing, the curtain to be open.
Can it go all the way around the curtain?
Yeah, we do it all the time.
Nice.
That's a great tip there, Chris. I'm looking at it right now in the picture, and it definitely stands out. You can see how it tilts back and forth in the ocean view stateroom with in between the curtains. So
you still have noise pollution, and if your kids are light sleepers, maybe it won't work, but we've done it and it's worked pretty well.
So you're not going to watch Infinity War while the kids are trying to sleep.
I mean, you could if you have a good sleeper. Once they're asleep, you should see what we could do with my kids sleeping. You could have like a whole firework display going off on top of your house.
And he would notice it.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump to the ocean view staterooms. Christy, why don't you talk about the differences with the ocean view staterooms that are available?
So there's different locations throughout the ship. And if you actually look at the outside picture of a Disney cruise ship, you can see the ocean view stateroom. So you can see the cabins with the little portholes versus a big porthole versus two larger portholes. I personally really like the large porthole on the Fantasy and the Dream class ships where it actually has a little bench. I love that because then the kids can sit there and play there. Or I suppose if you're an adult with a really small butt, you could sit there or lay in that little porthole as well because it's very narrow. It's so great. You really can see a great view outside, and yet you have the benefit of saving some money. I like those, which I guess we'll talk about this later, but I really like that category for summer cruises. Cruises when it's just going to be so hot, you're probably not going outside anyway.
And so with the ocean view staterooms, there's really just one size, generally one size. It's not like the inside staterooms where there's two different ones where one has a split bathroom, the other one doesn't. These all have split bathrooms, correct?
Well, they don't all. There's one category of ocean view staterooms on the Dream and Fantasy that have a non-split bathroom, but also, and I'll tell you what that category is, but there are two different size cabins. There is a family stateroom, and then there is also just the standard.
Okay. And I want to circle back a little bit. Anything else, I guess, about the specifics of it before we talk about the amenities one more time?
Of the ocean view? I don't think the amenities have changed, though, so I don't know that we have to go into the amenities anymore.
No, I just wanted to circle back and talk about the shower products. Chris, any thoughts on using the shower products? Do you bring your own stuff, or are you happy with what they have on board?
I don't know if I'm embarrassed to admit this or just want to proudly own it, but because we're close to Disneyland, whenever we go to Disneyland, we actually buy a bottle of the shampoo and conditioner to use at home.
I don't think you're the only one that does that.
We really like it. And I don't know if I just make it up, but I think my hair looks great after I use those Disney products. And so, I'm a big fan of them. I know the whole thing, which somehow it makes it into a topic on every show, but the whole thing about, you don't get individual size bottles anymore and all of that. But the product itself is just pretty good. There will be people online who will be absolutely not. I always bring my own. These products make my hair too oily or too dry. And that makes sense because humans are complicated and we all have different needs. But my hairstyle and my type of hair, it works really well. And so I love it. And yeah, the only thing I don't use is I don't really use their body wash. I like a more strong body wash than what they have, but that's about it for me.
And see, we're bar soap people. So we like the body wash for my son, which we actually use as bubble bath as well. So people can do that. They can get that now that you have to pump it into your hand basically, and then run it under the water. It's a big pain in the butt, actually, Disney Cruise Line, if you're bathing a child, at least in the bathrooms at Walt Disney World where they're attached to the wall. So on Disney Cruise Line, they're still loose, right? So you can move those bottles around.
Right.
So we can still move them around right now so you can actually get the soap in the tub to bathe your child. But we like to use that as his bubble bath. I think the products are great.
We are not alone in this. I mean, if you just follow any type of Diz boards or anything like that, most people really love the products. And there's something about that smell. If you bring it home and use it, it just takes you back to being either in Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or on the cruise line, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, every morning in the shower, I feel like I can feel the sway of the ship.
You can order those online, too, so if you don't want to run to Disneyland ever sometime.
Oh, that's a good call. Excitingly, they had an H2O, which the company that makes the Disney products is called H2O Plus, for those of you who don't know. They had an H2O exhibit at D23 this year. And so I got to stock up on the shampoo for 40% off.
Oh my
nice.
gosh.
It was pretty exciting.
We would have probably left home with a case of that stuff. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So don't worry about, bath products if you don't bring it and you want to use Disney stuff. They fill that up every day with the bottles. And the last time we were on, they still had at least one bar soap that they put in the bathroom as well. So they were doing that last spring. I'm not sure if that still continues, but for whatever that's worth. There was one other thing that...
On my cruise, they had one bar of soap for both of the little split bathrooms. I'm like, how's that going to work? I want to wash my hands in the other room. So maybe they need to have more soap in places. The other tip that I have for people with these cabins is, as long as you can move the body wash, we actually move that to next to the sink, and we use that as hand soap. Like when we come in the cabin, we like to wash our hands. And that's one of the ways we try to watch out for norovirus and things like that. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in that type of a situation with that many people, illness can spread. So wash your hands as many times as you can. We do it as soon as we get back into the cabin. And I actually use that body wash as hand soap.
It's a good call.
Well, let's move on. Anything else about the Ocean View staterooms? I think they're great. Once again, a little bit lower price point than the verandas generally, and you still get the light that comes in. You can look out and see where you are without, having to turn the TV on with the inside stateroom. So I think that's a great category to go with as well if you're looking to save a little bit of money besides paying for the verandas. So anything else, guys, before we turn to the verandas?
The one other thing to talk about is category 8A is the Ocean View category that doesn't have the split bath. Okay. And it has actually a split cabin. So there's a wall in between. So the living room is on the opposite side of a wall. So it's kind of like a little suite. It just doesn't have a tub in the bathroom either.
Huh. Well, there you go. Is that one of those ones that people really love and covet or something like that? It sounds like one of those ones.
Yeah, they flock to it.
Yeah. We don't. I guess we don't have those in our family. We're just happy to get on with what we get. So, well, let's turn to the verandas. Chris, why don't you jump in there and lead us in that?
Yeah. So we've only sailed in the verandas, though. Obviously, the immediate drawback to a veranda, which we mentioned earlier, is that they just tend to be a lot more expensive than the other categories, and so. One of the things to think about is, do you need a veranda or not? And for us, I think it started as a motion sickness thing, but we also just really like to be able to walk out there in the middle of the day and just sort of see the horizon and have privacy without other people being around. Because obviously you can see the ocean and get fresh air on deck 4 or up on the upper decks. There's plenty of places to see the ocean, but the veranda gives you that privacy factor that I think a lot of people are looking for. I've also heard, and Chrissy, you'd be better to talk about this, but I've heard that parents really like the veranda because they can sit out on the veranda while their kids take naps. And that allows them to like maybe have an adult drink, read a book, but also not disturb their kid while they're sleeping. And that might be another reason you would want to go for the veranda.
Yeah, some parents, though, are concerned about their kids climbing, which and they're pretty high. I'm 5'2", and they come all the way up to, like, my upper chest area. So it isn't like that they're at such a level where it would take effort for people to fall over the veranda to get into the ocean, basically, right? To fall off veranda balcony.
Yes. And the child locks are located at the very tip top of the door.
Yes, so that was my second point. Yep.
If you engage that, I'm sure it's really impossible for the kids to get out there.
Yeah, it would take a lot more effort. And so, yeah, the idea of kids being able to take a nap, you double bolt the outside door so that somebody can't come in, and then you can go and sit outside on the veranda for a little bit. It's pretty perfect. Or at night when they're sleeping and you can go sit out there. It's really nice.
Yeah. So in terms of veranda categories, you'll actually find that there's a ton of veranda categories because the veranda categories follow the shape of the ship. So verandas that are aft or forward will have different shaped verandas, especially those aft verandas. Some people really want to book the aft verandas because they're big. Some of those you could literally lay out on. They're so big. Just because they're weird shaped and the back of the ship is not as like easy to install rooms as the sides of the ship. And so there's lots of categories.
All the way aft. So those would be like sunset verandas on other cruise lines. But yes, the categories that literally you're looking at the wake of the ship.
Exactly. And so a lot of people love to look at the wake of the ship, especially in the moonlight. It's really beautiful. And so they'll book those rooms. But one thing to think about is if you have allergies or asthma, sometimes the fumes from the exhaust from the ship will sort of float back there. Some people complain that there's even like a little bit of a film from that on the banisters and things like that. So just think about that. If that's something you're concerned about, you may not want to book at the very back of the ship.
Sometimes the smells come back there too from the food restaurant. A couple of the ships, there are handicap accessible cabins back there, which is what she books. And yeah, sometimes her balcony kind of smells.
Interesting. Like good food, or is it smell
like fried food?
Oh, well, Depends on your mood, I guess. But yeah, absolutely. I think those ones do have the downside of being sort of downwind of everything.
Yes.
Just because of the forward momentum of the ship. But, beautiful views. And I've actually been on one of those balconies when there's a bright moon out. And the white wake of the ship in the water and the moonlight, it's really beautiful. But there is some downsides for air quality, at least. The other category of veranda is called like a white wall veranda. And the white wall verandas, what they basically mean is that it's not like a plexiglass that you can see through while you're sitting. It's the steel of the ship as a wall instead of the plexiglass. And those ones tend to be a little bit cheaper than the other categories, because you can't sort of sit and look out. And you'll only find white wall verandas at the very front of the ship and the very back of the ship, just because of the way the steel is cut.
Because they want it to look visually appealing.
Exactly. And those, I think, are called navigator verandas, if you're looking for them on the website. And they have fun perks like wood accents. And there's even on the older ships like nautical maps and various other things that they put out there to sort of make the white wall less boring to stare at. But it is not as open feeling as the traditional veranda. So something to think about there too.
We had a obstructed view veranda on the Fantasy on our last one, so that was a little bit cheaper one to book as well. And I think like maybe a third of the veranda was cut off just because of the wall came down. But I mean, it was awesome. It was a little bit cheaper price point, and we go out and stand on the verandas generally when we're sailing, and so you still had just a great view, and you could look out and around the wall if you wanted to look back. So I didn't feel like that was a big deal at all.
Yeah, I'm curious because I've only stayed midship on the Disney ships. How was the motion of the ship when you were so far forward or back?
So forward, you feel everything. Back, you don't feel it as much. In fact, so for motion sickness purposes, I always tell people actually want to be the middle of the ship in the middle of the ship. So some people would say, oh, you got to be higher. No, you're going to feel things higher. Get some physics out there, but you're gonna, if you go to the bottom to the top of something swaying, the bottom doesn't move as much as the top. Is that physics? I don't know. It's some sort of science. So, Steve, you have a degree in something science related, don't you? You could tell us. But either way, there's the motion. You're going to sway more at the top than at the bottom. And so if you are towards the middle, then you're not going to feel it as much. There have been cruises where, because concierge is always forward, which I loathe, but I want to be in concierge a lot of times, so I will have to accept it. But there have been times where we were moving all over the place, the ship was, and then we went down to my mom's cabin that was deck 6 aft, and it was a world of difference.
So motion sickness people beware is really the moral, because these cheaper rooms that are forward or aft, sometimes, I think aft,
I don't think there's the issue with aft as much. You feel the vibrations from docking in the aft, but you shouldn't really feel much difference in the motion from aft.
We had 2 pretty rocky days. My wife gets motion sickness, and she had no problems whatsoever. She took Bonine, and that helped her. But being in the back, it really didn't. I mean, you definitely felt it. I mean, the whole ship was moving. But I went up to run in the gym, and you could really feel it up there going up and down. So I think like you're saying, Christy, you're going to feel a lot more up to the front. The mid part being the best, and the back not quite as bad. So.
And hot tip for people who get motion sick, they have Bonine in like a candy bowl downstairs at the medical area that you can just grab handfuls of. So you don't even need to pack it.
Yes, I always pack it. And
me too. I don't follow my own advice.
It's not for children. So you would need to bring a chewable children's Dramamine if you have one. I don't know that they have them as readily available on the ship.
Well, to kind of wrap up the verandas, the only other difference between the two is with the Deluxe Family Ocean View stateroom with veranda, that's going to be your cabin in which sleeps 5. And then the regular veranda, the Deluxe Ocean View stateroom with veranda, is going to sleep either 3 or 4. So if you've got a 5-person family, or if you've got 5 people traveling with you, that's what you're going to need to book if you don't want to book 2 different cabins, or you don't want to book the suite.
Well, and for all of the ones that we keep saying they sleep 1 extra person, just know that they also during the day have a little bit more square footage. So, for example, the family veranda has a little bit more square footage tacked onto the end of the room. So there is a chair and a couch versus the sort of typical veranda, which just has a couch. So if it was really important to you to have that extra space in your room for some reason, even though you didn't have 5 people, that might be another reason to book a veranda that is for families. But I will say those family verandas are definitely the most expensive outside of concierge.
Yeah, but that extra space is really nice, especially if you're traveling with little one that wants to be in the room a little bit. That extra space, you have a spot to store stuff. We do appreciate that space.
It's probably great for a pack and play too.
You actually can. We would ask them to take the chair out, and I don't know where they put those chairs, but it was not in my room anymore. And so the pack and play was able to fit right there.
So before we turn into concierge, one other thing to throw out there, at least on the Magic of the Wonder, those 5-person staterooms with the veranda are all on deck 8, which is underneath deck 9, which is the pool deck. And the only complaints that I've heard at times is people can hear, sometimes it's when they're, I think, cleaning the pool deck up above, either late in the evening or early in the morning, people have heard, noise above. But for the most part...
Also just the wind.
Yeah. So just for whatever it's worth on the Magic of the Wonder, if you're looking at those, they're all on deck 8. And there could be a little bit of a noise issue, but I wouldn't stay away from it just because of that. Well, let's turn to concierge, Christy. Why don't you lead us through that a little bit?
So concierge has the same, so the family ocean view veranda cabin is the exact same layout as the non-concierge cabin. So they throw in some extra wood paneling or, in a different door, but the cabin is exactly the same. The couch is a little bit fluffier than the non-concierge cabin, but the layout and the size, everything is the same. And then from there, you can move up to a 1-bedroom suite. You can move up to a royal suite, which is giant. And I have seen that suite one time because we were checking out of whatever our concierge cabin was, and we found our room steward down the hall. The same thing you did, Steve, with the inside room. I used it as an opportunity to go into the royal suite. And you just keep walking and walking and walking, and it doesn't end. It's so amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It really is gorgeous. And then on the Magic and the Wonder, they also have 2-bedroom suites, and then They have a royal suite, which is 2 bedrooms as well, which is just a little bit of a different layout. It's pretty big.
So if you want to see what each one of these entails, I kind of recommend you go to the website if this is going to be in your wheelhouse as far as
call Christy.
Call Christy.
Call Christy.
These are obviously going to be the most expensive cabins on board the ship, so you can take a look at that. Do you have any gut feeling on how these sell out pretty fast, don't they?
Man, they do sell out fast, and they're just getting more expensive. And here is a random tip. So let's say you have a family of 4 and you think you want the royal suite, which is there's 2 royal suites on the Dream and the Fantasy. They are all the way forward. Connected to the royal suites are a regular family veranda. So the room that sleeps up to 5, they are on the side. Disney will hold those back so that they can be booked with the royal suite if the person in the royal suite wants it. It has been cheaper for a couple of sailings to do a royal suite with 2 people and then a family veranda with 2 people than to put 4 people in the royal suite.
Really?
So think about that for a second. Isn't that crazy? So they can get a whole extra cabin instead of just putting 2 more adults because the price per person in the royal suite is so high.
So do your homework when you're booking these and price it out, I guess.
Yes.
Contact your travel agent, contact Christy and price it out. Anyways, Christy, anything else about the royal suites and concierge? We've talked about concierge a lot and what that offers, so we're not going to jump into that. But anything else about those cabins?
The cabins use different bath products, so they use the bath products that are sold in the spa area, and so you can actually request the basic H2O products if you like, because I really like the H2O lotion, but they use Elemis. How do you say it, Christy?
Elemis.
Yeah. So it actually, that shampoo and conditioner, and then they'll give you a bubble bath if you are in the 1 bedroom because there's a huge bathtub in there. That is all very nice. It is quite nice. So, just imagine what your hair could look like with that shampoo, Chris.
Well, hot tip, I also use LMS products. I think I have a problem. You're helping me understand that I might have a problem.
Well, that's good. So at least we know. See, we know it's a good product if you use it.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, they're basically the same cabins. They just, maybe the towels are going to be a little fluffier or newer or larger, but the inclusions inside are all the same.
One last tip too with the gym and the spa. The gym always has a huge bathroom that if you're using the spa or the gym that you can go into, and so I know that we've had people before, and I've done it once or twice, where if somebody's taking a shower in our room, you can go up to the gym and take a shower up there if you're kind of in a tight bind for getting ready. And they have LMS products at the gym.
And they have flip-flops that they then sanitize and let you reuse. Not flip-flops, but the shoes you slide into. So sandals that you can then use in the shower.
Perfect.
And robes and all that stuff.
Yeah, so one way, if you were, let's say, a lot of adults traveling or just a lot of people in your room traveling, one way to always have access to those additional showers is to book the Rainforest Pass, the week-long Rainforest Pass, which would allow you essentially access to the gym, spa facilities. The gym you can go to any day. You don't have to pay for spa things. But if you want access to the spa facilities, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but you do have to pay to go into that part of the spa, right?
No, you can take a shower anytime.
Oh, so the only thing you can't do is take a rainforest shower anytime.
Correct.
Okay, well, I mean, we don't need all the extra cents if we're just trying to get clean. So, don't mind me. I guess we don't really need to pay the upcharge there.
And you don't have to have a workout.
Once.
You could just walk in there.
That's great.
You don't have to run on the treadmill. You're right. So, any other thoughts about the rooms before we kind of finish up and talk about some pros and cons where we like to book?
Well, so one thing that we didn't talk about when we were planning, but I think we should mention, is that there are slight differences between the rooms in the ship categories. And I have a couple that I listed out. One is that on the Dream and the Fantasy, you have this coffee table that doubles as a storage chest. Mm-hmm. And we use that as our dirty clothes hamper. But
ew, I'm going to have to really clean that out next time.
I know. Don't worry. I bring Lysol wipes because I have a thing for germs. And I always sanitize for the people coming after.
You do? That's so sweet of you.
I'm a little weird. I have a thing. But it's just to help everyone out.
So can I give you a pro tip about your dirty laundry that maybe you can use? You can use those little, you can still use that table, what is it, coffee table? Which we as parents use that for my son's toys often. So you lift that up and he can put his toys in there. But let me just tell you, if you do have kids sleeping on that pull-out couch, they actually put their blankets in there, unfortunately. So then you don't get to use it for either of those features. However, here's a pro tip for you with your laundry. Still put the laundry, which is disgusting, in the item that everybody else uses. But we use plastic bags and we sort our laundry during the trip. And we use the Disney shopping bags that you can still kind of sneak away. Just don't get it on Disney Cruise Line because I don't have them anymore. But we'll use like a Disney Cruise Line bag for our cold water clothes. And then we'll use Walt Disney World bag for our hot water clothes so that we don't have to sort that laundry as much when we get home.
Well, I'm not going to have Steve edit it out because I'm living my truth, but I'm worried that all the listeners are going to be like, ew, Chris is really gross. And just know that I use Lysol wipes, so you don't have to worry. But Chrissy, it's a great tip, and I promise not to put dirty clothes in there by themselves.
It's fine. It's actually a good tip. It's good knowledge for all of us to have that sometimes people put their dirty underwear in the same place that you put something that might be used on your body later. So bring your own Lysol wipes to clean out the drawers before you put your stuff away.
Well, on that note, let's kind of end it up, or let's finish it up and talk about where we like to book and why we like to book there. So who wants to go first? Don't everybody answer at once. All right. Chrissy, you go first.
Oh, I like to book concierge.
Okay, well, that's fine. Go ahead and tell why you like to book concierge, and obviously we know you like the service of concierge and the lounge and whatnot, but why don't you talk a little bit about why you like to book it, I guess.
Honestly, the lounge is what does it for us. My family, we all love that lounge, and the personal service that I get from them, and you like walk in and they already have anticipated your need before you even had a need, before you even knew what the need was. So I like the lounge. I like concierge. However, when I am picking a cabin that is not concierge, or I'm booking a last minute cabin, which I have done before, sometimes they'll have rates at the end or whatever, for whatever reason. Our first cruise we booked, I believe, a couple of weeks before the cruise. So I am in all kinds of different cabins. Then I'll just go where they put me. Being on a Disney cruise is better than not being on a Disney cruise.
Preach.
Well, that's a good answer there. Chris, how about you? What are your pros and cons, or where do you guys like to book, or what are your thoughts?
So I already mentioned that I have only booked Veranda, but if it were the difference between going and not going, I would certainly book a different category. The thing for us about Veranda is just that we like to have the privacy and be able to still be outside and get fresh air and look at the views.
But
otherwise, yeah.
I'm just going to interject just so people know it isn't 100% private. So
you're right.
You do have to be mindful of the fact that people can see, and from different areas of the ship, they can see back towards the ship because there's like a bump out. There's security cameras. So just so people know. But yes, you are alone. For the most part, you're not going to have, it's not like being at the pool deck with all the people. So it is your own little oasis. Hopefully the people that are outside around you are mindful of the fact that other people are out there. Occasionally we have had people that have had like connecting rooms and they'll open those up, which is fine. But then literally the kids will do like a racetrack in between the two cabins and through the veranda. And so maybe that's not as peaceful. But it can be your own little oasis, but it is not private completely. So I just like, because I think some people don't know that.
Well, what Chrissy is trying to say to everyone is don't go out on your veranda naked, which, is a good tip.
I was trying not to say those words, but yes.
I'm just helping to code switch for you. But yeah, I agree. It isn't private enough to do that, but private enough that you could like get some peace and quiet and not have people walking past you or things like that. So Correct. We like that, but it's not the only, like I said, there's plenty of reasons I think we might not book verandas in the future, but sort of when we can and when we're able to. And listen, if I could be like, which category could I book on? I would be like, concierge, please. But I have yet to do that. So maybe one day, and then that'll be my new favorite. But for now, we like a good veranda. It's comfortable to us. It feels homey in there. And we've gotten used to it.
Well, I'm going to go with you, Chris. We love the verandas, especially having 2 kids. You get a little bit more space with having the 2 boys by opening up that door and being able to go outside. Especially like when you're there for like an hour or so when your wife's getting ready and you're just kind of chilling out. It's nice to open up that door and just kind of watch the sea go by if it's a sea day. But we do have kind of a specific place that we actually like booking, whether it's a veranda or not. And generally it has to be a veranda, but I guess there's some inside staterooms too. But we like being on deck 6 on the Magic and the Wonder right above the kids clubs. And we generally like to book, believe it or not, right near the elevators. And I know there's people have a lot.
It's very specific.
It is, and the reason why is because, and I really felt this on the Fantasy when we were on there. If you were in one of those middle staterooms, right in the middle of that hallway, in between the fore and the aft, boy, you are doing a lot of walking back and forth.
It is long. It feels long.
It does. It feels super long. And so for us, to pop out the door and then hit the stairway right away and get up or down to where you're going to, and, and being in the back, you're close to cabanas. It's quick to get up to the pool and then also down to the kids clubs and then the adult entertainment areas on the ships. We really like that aft area. And for the most part, and I'm not even going to say for the most part, we have never had any problem with the noise on Disney, and we've done the same thing on Norwegian, on the Getaway, and we have never had any noise problems being by the elevators. So yeah, we're kind of specific that way. That's where we try to book if we have a choice. But once again, just like you guys, if we can be on the ship, it really doesn't matter. We're just happy to be on it. So, but if we have a choice, that's where we'd be. And then concierge, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I mean, might as well, right?
Yeah. So I guess to kind of finish up, let's throw this out to you first, Chrissy, before we kind of finish up with any thoughts that we haven't talked about. But is there anything specific or any kind of questions that you try and reach out when you're working with a new client who hasn't been on a Disney ship? Are there any things that you try to throw at them to make them think about where they might want to be?
Well, and definitely with what type of cabin. So if I have a newer cruiser or even somebody more experienced, but that is used to cruising, I'm from Michigan. We have really cold, awful winters here. And so we want to get on a cruise in the winter. It's our busiest time for people to get away so that we can be in the heat. When you are coming from Michigan and you're going to the Caribbean in February, March, you want that balcony so that you could go out there and experience that gorgeousness of the Caribbean. But in the summer, it's a little oppressive out there. And so I will steer people that are on the fence just towards an ocean view room because it is so hot in the Caribbean and the Bahamas in the summer that, like, for us, we hardly use our balcony. I mean, we'll put our clothes out there to dry, but that isn't a really good use of that space in the middle of the summer. So that's just something to think about. In terms of, I'll have a motion sickness discussion with them. We'll have a discussion of mobility. Where do they want to be located? If they're traveling with other people, I don't need people to be on the same floor, but you want to be near the same elevator. Because let me tell you, the difference between deck 10 forward and deck 6 aft is long. That is a long walk in between those two rooms because deck 6 is one of the longer decks on the ship. And if you have a very aft room there and you need to get to somebody that's all the way forward, like on deck 10, for example, that's a long walk. So think about things like that if you're traveling with other people. And that's why having a travel agent that sees some of those things is helpful, or just, I guess, know it yourself. But it's not hard to pop up and down a floor. So somebody can be on floor 6 or deck 6. Someone can be on deck 7. And it's easy to pop up and down stairs if they're near the same set of stairs or elevators. So that's just a consideration I would have with people. The motion sickness issue is another thing I would help people to think about. Obviously, the price. The lower you are, the lower the price. And then also, the more forward or back you are, the lower the price. So that's how Disney does their prices. So if we're really trying to get you into a veranda cabin, but at the lowest price, you're going to be in the front and the back. And as long as motion isn't a problem, then just go forward because there's going to be a lot more options for you. And then people want to be higher. So the higher decks cost more. And I think people want to be higher because concierge is located at the top. I don't understand. But because you're closer to the pool, though, how easy it is to just hop up a deck or two and be at the pool. But the one thing Steve did mention is that if you are on the floor right below the pool, so deck 10 on the Dream and the Fantasy and deck 8 on the Wonder and the Magic, you will hear those chairs. You will hear them when they are cleaning. You will hear them if you are taking an afternoon nap and people are just sitting and moving their chair around. And at nighttime, the wind blows the deck chairs a little bit, so you are going to hear the noises above you. And that's true in the concierge rooms as well.
Well, all good points there. I hope everybody out there that has listened to this episode enjoy kind of our thoughts as far as the different staterooms that are available on the Magic, the Wonder, the Fantasy, and the Dream. And I look forward to seeing what's going to be coming on the Wish here in about 2 years. I can't wait to see what they do, because I'm sure that things are going to be changing up there with how they do some of the rooms as well. So, Chris, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
I guess my final thought would just be that the room category thing can feel more overwhelming than it needs to be. Picking your exact spot on the ship is something is really important to some people. But we never really mentioned on the show that another option when booking is that you could book like a guaranteed rate, where they will choose your room for you and they will just guarantee that category or better. And for a lot of people, it means you can get into that veranda room for a couple $100 less. You just don't get to pick exactly where on the ship. And maybe you'll be in one that was more expensive. Maybe you'll be in one that's obstructed. But either way, you're still saving a little bit of money. And that's another tip if this whole conversation to you is like overwhelming and you're like, I have no idea what category or what, letter I need to be in. Really, you could save some money by just letting Disney do some of the footwork for you.
Yeah, and Disney goes to the guaranteed status at the end as well. So they might do it at various other times, or they'll do it as they start to sell out a ship. So sometimes it could be the ship's been on sale for a month and they're already in guaranteed status because they've sold all the staterooms. They've sold so many staterooms that then they switch to a guaranteed status so that you'll just round robin your room. They'll assign you a room sometimes leading up to going on the cruise. That's when you'll be assigned your room. And that happens.
Well, that's a good point there that we didn't throw out there. I know a lot of times with the Florida residency rates, they're guaranteed cabins as well for them. So, well, Chris, thank you so much for being part of our show. We really appreciate you being on for this, and we look forward to you coming back and helping us out with the 101 series and several other shows as we go forward. So, welcome to being part of the team.
Thank you. I'm excited.
And Christy, thank you so much for all your knowledge and kind of wrangling us through all the different cabins that are on board the different ships of the Disney Cruise Line. So thanks, guys, and look forward to our next 101 series. We'll try and, what do you think? Should we try and do one of these one a month, Christy, or one every other month?
Oh, I think that's a little ambitious. I would say once a quarter.
All right. We'll shoot for once a quarter. You're right. All the different work that we have going on and just wrangling families and keeping up with everything else, maybe we should shoot for one a quarter. Well, once again, guys, thanks so much for getting the show out to our listeners, and we'll see you next time on the next DCL 101 series. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.